Hey guys, this is Brad with Blue Nile Farm. If you own a gravel driveway and you are facing your first big snow and you want to basically not tear up your driveway, this is the video for you. I'm going to show you techniques and methods on how to start plowing your driveway and making it done effectively without ruining your crown and without tearing up and losing your stone. So with that said, stay tuned and we'll talk about some of the techniques you can do to reduce damage to your gravel driveway and make it a lot easier transition come springtime. So it's Thanksgiving, Thursday, and in the next 24 to 48 hours, we're expecting to get at least 15 inches of snow in northeastern Ohio, and that's where I live. So I'm out here trying to combat and getting set up for this. Now, many years ago when I first started plowing snow, and I have 50 years of plowing gravel driveways, and I've started with those open air tractors with back blades. I've never used four-wheelers, but a lot of people do. I use a lot of times tractors with loaders. I've used backhoes with loaders. I use skid steers with loaders. I've used a lot of different types of equipment to deal with the driveway. And when I first started doing this, I didn't really understand the concept, and I would tear up my driveway all the time. Nowadays, I really am more cautious on how I do it, and I rarely do a lot of damage to my driveway. So with that said, and I'm not just talking damage as far as rutting, and I'm talking damage of even stone removal and just making a big mess come springtime. So I'm going to try to kind of walk you through a process that I do that will hopefully reduce some of the damage to your gravel driveway. So come spring, everything's going to be good and you don't have a big mess. And this is just the basic ideas of what you need to do. Now, the first thing that you need to do is plan. And the planning part is basically staking out your driveway. So let me show you how I staked out my driveway so it'll make life a little bit easier for you to at least see where you're going. So between me, you can see there's two stakes. And I have the stakes set up wide apart for specific reasons. They're off the driveway about a foot, foot and a half each place. And the reason why I don't do it and keep them up closer is because when you go down the driveway and you start pushing snow, especially if you get a large amount of snow, it's going to push off to the side. Or if you have a plow or you're angling with a back blade or a four-wheeler or even a truck, you want to push that snow off to the side. So what you want to do is basically give yourself room to be a marker, but also push that snow off and out of your way. Because you don't want to narrow your driveway in the wintertime. You want to have full access to it. And for myself, I have a lot of big equipment coming up and down the driveway all winter long. So I want to make sure that full access is available. So if you look down my driveway, you can see that I have stakes marked about 30 foot apart all the way to the road. And I'm pretty wide at the road for bigger equipment to pull in. So just make sure everything's well marked and that you're able to know where your driveway is at all times. Going all the way to the barns, I have everything set up where it needs to be so I can see exactly where I need to go. And there's a slight curve at my driveway, so there's been times where I've had so much snow that I've lost my own position. So it does make a big help for yourself when you know where you're going. And if you're paying somebody to do your driveway, you definitely want to have it marked. So the ideal gravel driveway would be mounded or crowned in the center, and you'll have stone so the water will roll off to the sides. So the concept behind plowing your driveway for most people that have passenger cars or smaller cars is that to basically reduce and remove as much snow as possible without tearing up your driveway. So when you have a gravel driveway, it has to be treated different than concrete or asphalt. When you have a concrete or asphalt driveway, you can take your blade, go right down on the ground and just scrape everything right off, and that's good to go. But with a gravel driveway, if you go down and you scrape, you're going to remove that gravel driveway. It's even worse when it's your first snow because the ground is so warm, and I'm in 40 degrees right now, and it's getting colder. It'll be 30 degrees in a couple days, but the ground's not going to freeze. And so what's going to happen is it's very easy for you to take a tractor or a four-wheeler or any kind of attachment, even a back blade, and just dig too deep and scrape it off. And because our goal is just to allow cars to come in and out of our driveway, the key here is not to go deep. If you leave yourself 1 to 2 inches of snow on top of your gravel driveway, that's the secret. And that is really the key to doing this. And so a lot of people will know this and they'll start plowing their driveway and they're angled the wrong way, and all of a sudden, boom, they dig into their gravel driveway, or they grab a whole big scoop of gravel, and basically the first thing out of their mouth is, oh shit, and they just go crazy because they screwed up. And I've done that many, many, many times in my life. So what we're planning to do today is I'm going to kind of explain to you how you can keep yourself from digging too deep and allowing yourself that base. Now, over time, if you have over winter, and say we're getting consistent snow and we have consistently cold temperatures, once you start packing that snow and that ice down on top of your gravel driveway and you create a base where it's, you know, a snow base, then you can sit there and drop your blade down and really plow, and you will not remove your gravel. But the key here is to start and create a base of snow that encases your gravel driveway, that allows you to travel up and down with a car that gets packed in, but it'll allow you to basically manage it throughout the rest of the year as long as you keep that base. But if you do not create that base, you're going to be in big trouble. And that's where people fail in their gravel driveways, is they go too deep, they chop into it, especially on the first snow, and then they will push all this snow and gravel into a pile, and that's why you have all this stone on grass areas that you don't want it to be, and then over springtime you're going to spend all this time trying to rake that gravel out of your grass. It's not worth it at all. So if you do it properly, you will reduce that problem greatly. So when we talk about plowing your driveway, one of the things is we're not going to worry about the crown itself, meaning I'm not going to try to take down my crown. I almost want to just be able to push straight down the driveway. So we're going to build it up and not worry about going with the crown. We're just going to stay straight. So once that base is straight, you're not going to be doing any damage to the crown of your gravel driveway. So when you plow, say with a loader, tractor, or anything that's straight, you do not want to have the plow angled downward like it is now. I'm going to show you. This is the no-no. You see how that plow is down straight? It's running flat to the ground. This is what you do not do when you start plowing your driveway. This is how, I'm going to show you here in a second, how it's supposed to be when it's curled properly, so you can drive down your driveway going forward, but you're not going to do the damage to your driveway. Now by having your bucket curled just a little bit, you can see that you're kind of tilting backward. Now you can drive down your driveway, creating a base, and at the same time you're not going to touch your driveway. This is kind of what I call the key to getting started. And even if you leave snow, it's okay, because you're going to do with the tractor, with the loader bucket, two things. You're going to push snow and you're going to back drag snow. So you're pushing snow and back dragging snow, and that is the key to not affecting your driveway. So say you're pushing your snow all the way down, you're going to make a mound. Then you can pile it up in one spot. So what I do is, most time when I do my driveway itself, on a long shot, I'm going to push all the way to the road. And then off to the side of the road, I'll pile it up. And that's kind of those are my two designated spots. If I go back toward the barn area, I'll pick a spot where if I'm going to pile it up, it's not going to be in my way, and if any stone that's left over, it's already a stoned area, so I'm not going to be wasting my stone. I can actually just redistribute it if I get a little bit, but I try to do my best not to collect snow at all. It makes things a lot easier. So tipping that bucket back a little bit and being able to push will get the majority of your snow up to a spot you need it to be. Then by back dragging it, all that is curling the bucket forward and just going backward, then you're going to be re-smoothing it out on the driveway, and you're not going to really be pulling a lot of stone. Just be cognizant you're just using it as the ability to flatten and level snow. And by using that combination with the bucket, you're not going to do any damage to your gravel driveway, and you're going to create that sub base. So then when it freezes over a period of time, then when it's a solid base, then you can kind of flatten out that bucket and be able to drive straight, and you'll have very limited amount of stone destruction on your gravel driveway. And those are basically the key using a loader bucket. So this is an example of like back dragging. Now we have a tilt this way, but I can be a little more aggressive. It all depends on how your snow's traveling backwards. So you're going to have to play with this a little bit and find out what works for you. But back dragging is going to be your key to flatten and level everything out. Now some tractors have a self-leveling bar where you can decide where you're level at, and each tractor is a little different. My Kubota has one too, but it fell off and I have to replace it. That's why I'm showing you this one on the LS. But you need to find your honey spot. What is your spot? And once you figure it out, especially if you have one of these levelers that you can use on your tractor, that makes a big difference on your loader. And if you don't have one, you're going to have to look at the angle or the flat part on the top of your bucket, and you're going to have to figure that out where it works best for you. But once you find your honey spot, you'll be good to go. Now, when it comes down to dealing with your first snow, to be honest with you, if I got a small amount of snow, what I mean by small amount is maybe 8 inches or less, something that's not really something, or not something that's really heavy, my ideal method of plowing my driveway, especially in the first snow when it's warm, is back drag. I'd back drag this entire driveway. It'd be faster, it'd be easier. I'm creating a base because I'm pulling it backward. And if I had a huge pile, then I would push it up into a pile. But that's why you have to decide what is the best method. So if you're going to ask me how would I attack my snow problem first, generally it's going to be back dragging. And if it's a huge amount of snow, I'm going to have to push forward. And if I do, I'm going to curl my bucket up. And that is really my best advice for attacking your driveway. You know, back dragging, it doesn't matter how big your driveway, you can have a 1,000-foot driveway, you can back drag, then you might get to a point where you might have to push it off. But the bottom line is use the back dragging method. And what we'll do is you're back dragging, you're coating and packing that snow on top of your driveway, creating a base. And that's kind of one of the smarter ways of doing it, and you're maintaining it. And I suggest people do that with four-wheelers. Back dragging anything with a plow, is especially a forward plow, is probably the best technique to really make a difference. Now, we're going to talk next about how to deal with back blades, because any back attachment's a whole different ball game, and a lot of people plow their driveways with that, and I want to talk about that also. So when it comes down to back attachments, what I mean by back attachments, we could be talking about a back blade, we can be talking about a box scraper, we could be talking about a York rake or a landscape rake. I've used all those to plow snow, and they all work well. But the point is that if you're going to do your gravel driveway, you can do it, go backward or go forward, especially with, depending on how much snow you actually have in the driveway. But do the same thing. Do not make contact with that ground. You can take it in increments or pieces and you do well. Now the York rake or the landscape rake, it has done me real well over the years, and I really didn't, it takes snow off, and it doesn't take so much off, and you really don't do a lot of damage to your gravel driveway because they have those little tines. All it will do is tickle the stone. So that will do a lot less damage, especially if you're creating an initial base. Like say, for example, we're talking about our first snow. I would probably lean toward a landscape rake or a York rake well before I would use a box scraper or a straight blade. Now, if you had a large amount of snow, what's nice about the straight blade is that normally you can angle them and you can push your snow off to the side, into the markers, and that's cool. But the kicker with those blades is make sure that your hydraulic arms on both sides are even, because you do not want to lean one way or the other, or because you're going to start hitting the ground of your gravel driveway. You want to make sure everything's level. And again, take it in increments. Leave yourself 1 to 2 inches, and then be more cautious with a back blade or a box scraper or anything, a back attachment, than you would on the front blade, because you can have a little bit more control. But I would definitely think about trying a landscape rake. You really can move a lot of snow with them, and they do very little damage to your gravel driveway, and it leaves enough on the bottom, but just don't drop it to the bottom, just kind of skim the top. But what's nice is if you do hit something, it won't do that much damage, and that's what's nice about that piece of equipment. So here's a landscape rake of mine that I have, and this thing can go around 360 degrees. You can spin it, and it's aiming backward right now, just sitting in my gravel. And I haven't used it in years. But, if you have a smaller tractor, or you want a nice light attachment that can really attack your snow, especially on the first time of the year, this is what I mean by a landscape rake, just so you guys have a visual of what I'm talking about. And these are things you can get at Tractor Supply or any other farm place, and they're pretty cost effective and pretty cheap. Well, it's definitely getting colder, and I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video. Hopefully I gave you some tips that will work for you, because they have worked for me over the years, and these are some of the things that I found that work real well. Almost everybody has some kind of tool to manage your gravel driveway. Just remember, create a base, do a lot of back dragging, and once that base is created and the ground is firm, and you got that gravel driveway protected by snow and ice where it's not going to move, you'll be good to go to plow easily. But it's the initial time in your first plow, that's when most people do the most damage. and it'll save you so much heartache and headaches if you do it this way. So with that said, again, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a good holiday, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.